One. Here we go. Welcome back to My Hero Academia Anime Review, episode number 230. We're here reviewing the 6th episode of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, Crossing Lines. And this episode adapts from chapter 9.5, along with chapters 10 and 11. And this was predictable. This episode capped up the Stendhal arc. And yes, I don't know who Stendhal is. And it will shock you, those who may or may not have seen the episode. So, in this episode, we start off with the 3 recurring villains in the first episode, where the lizard one is getting out of the hospital, but he can't smoke because he really wants to smoke. It's like, and they actually added this in here in the anime where his friend who basically flies like he wanted lips, so sure. And then they set out the fire alarm. Which, of course, then they decided to go outside the smoke. And they go, Nurse is hotter than Soga. He's the one with the claws, so like he's Wolverine. He leaves. By the way, Crawler does not show up until, like, the last, 10 minutes of the episode. He's remarkably absent. And then we cut to, well, before we get to, well, before we continue with Sogo, we do, well, by the way, the episode actually started off with, get this, we have these 3 Yakuza gangsters who only appeared in this special chapter. Oh yeah, definitely. A guy's named Tetsu, Ryoya, Yagami, and Hirosha. 3 members of the Yakuza who it's like, yeah, they're powerful, it's like you have to register. And then Stendhal shows up, pretty much massacres them, including throwing a knife at an unarmed woman. Yep. That's what Stendhal does. Then later on, he's like, oh, as a thank you. Apparently that Queen Bee provided him with this stuff, so all the bee stuff, and then, of course, and it's like, oh yeah, lure him a trap, so basically we got these 3 villains. Just because. So then we have Stendhal versus Soga, who gets really, we see a brief flashback, or apparently because it was Quark, he gets chastised because he looks a little different. Yes. By the way, he's voiced by Joshua Walters. Very interesting character he is. I mean, appearance-wise, he just basically is similar to Bakudo, except he's not over the top as Bakudo. Yeah, then apparently, despite the fact he wasn't taking Trigger, he's able to basically go to his monstrous form. Stendhal proceeds to slice him up. Crawler just happens to be patrolling nearby, and he tries to get out because basically he's wanting to die. And then, of course, Stendhal proceeds to incapacitate, they basically paralyze Crawler, and before he can hit him, here comes Knuckle Duster, where he has a brief fight with him. Yes, they fight for a little while, and then he breaks his nose. Stendhal gets away. Of course, they also broke his mask too. And yes, however who he is, just a minute. So then Papa's up just happens to come by. Well, Crawler gets his knee bandaged up, and of course the other guy, a woman, and of course Shogo is like, he's probably thinking like, damn, Crawler is lucky to be with this beautiful woman. Yep. And basically a little slash mark on his chest. And then we see what the heck Stendhal's up to. Well, without his mask, he proceeds to, well, throw a knife at Queen Bee, remove his nose. You're thinking, wait a minute, why would he remove his nose? When he started breathing without his nose? Possibly. I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. And basically, this basically is the birth of Stain the Hero Killer. Yep, Stain the Hero Killer. You know, the guy who was a recurring villain in the My Hero Academia series, yeah, this arc basically is how it got the way he is. So it took basically Nakatatsu breaking his nose for him to remove his own nose. And he's like, oh yeah, I don't need a mask. My face is my mask. And later on, he basically goes with bandage on his face, like he's Hush. Though from what I read, he is heavily inspired by 90s gritty superheroes. You know, gritting teeth, guns, all that other stuff. And apparently, like the scarf basically Stain's not wearing, that is actually inspired by Spawn. Yes, I would not be surprised basically if the creator decided to get a little more inspiration off from Rob Liefeld as well, which I find interesting the fact that this character was inspired, but basically was Rob Liefeld and Tom McCormick was like their work inspired Stain the Hero Killer. You know, like, really? Stain the Hero Killer was Deadhall? Yes. All along, this was basically set up for him in the main series. Now, that was simply the reason for this arc, to set basically a villain in the main series. So they kind of get how he got the way he is here. Oh, and Queen Bee gets up and proceeds on to her next plan, which, by the way, next episode, and I believe this definitely the case, next episode will start definitely the Queen Bee arc. An arc that was 17 chapters. Which I do think this particular first core will finish up with this particular arc. It's possible. Who knows? Okay? But, yeah. That is pretty much a particular review. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. It's getting kind of late, so I'm probably going to have to save my case goes video for tomorrow. Yep. See you tomorrow. Bye.